Hello, this is video number 3 for factoring trinomials with grouping. And we're going to start out with this first trinomial, multiply the 4 times the 27, right? And that's going to be 108. And then I'm trying to find a sum of my middle term, negative 39. Remember the coefficient of the middle term. Well, that happens to be negative 3 times negative 36. You might have to search for that a little bit because 108 has lots of factors. And negative 3 plus negative 36 would give me the negative 39. If you started out with going through the process, right, with the 108, 1 times 108, 2 times 54, and then you would get to this one, and also knowing that we have to have the same sign because when I multiply two negatives, I get a positive, but I need to add to get negative 39, so they have to be both negative in this case. So we replace that middle term. And then we group and factor. So group it by 2 and 2, right? We're going to take out an x. That leaves me 4x minus 3. Take out negative 9, and that's 4x minus 3. And then in factored form, 4x minus 3 times x minus 9. Remember, when you factor out, you're actually dividing by that factor. So when I factored out the negative 9, I was dividing the negative 36x. That gives me a positive 4x, and then positive 27 by negative 9 gives me that negative 3. All right, so next we have 4 times 9. Now, if you were really looking at this, you might notice that this is a perfect square trinomial because it has the 4x squared and the 9. And if you went through that process of, right, this perfect square trinomial little formula, then you would see that that happens to be one. But you can just use factoring on this. So if I take 4 times 9, I get 36. So factors of 36 that have a sum of 12. And that happens to be 6 and 6. And it's funny, sometimes students miss the 6 times 6 for some reason. They just kind of overlook that. So you just have to be careful and go through the factors. I'm going to replace 12x with 6x and 6x. And then we group and factor. So my common factor for the first two terms is going to be a 2x. And then that leaves me 2x plus 3. And then a common factor for 6x and 9 is 3. And that leaves me 2x plus 3. Now notice, whenever I write this, my two binomials are actually the same thing. My common binomial is 2x plus 3. My second binomial is also 2x plus 3. So we can write it twice like I did right here, or you can write it with an exponent, 2x plus 3, quantity squared. All right. Next, in this case, we have a common factor, so we want to take out the common factor first. Notice they're all even. Also, we have some higher exponents going on, so we want to take care of that. So my common factor is 2x to the third, and then I factor that out of each term. Remember, you're really dividing by 2x to the third. So that leaves me with a 10x squared plus 27x plus 5. For my grouping, then I'm going to multiply 10 times 5 and find factors of 50 that have a sum of 27. Now this one's pretty easy to find because the first thing I do is maybe divide by 2. 2 times 25 is 50. 2 plus 25 is 27. And then I replace my middle term with those two, right? 2x and 25x. And then group. All right, so I'm going to group and factor out my common factors for each group. So for my first two terms, I will take out a 2x, and that leaves me a 5x plus 1. On the second two, I can remove a 5. My common factor is 5. And then that leaves me 5x plus 1. Remember that what's in parentheses has to be exactly the same. And don't try to make it the same if it's not working out. Just go back and find, if you made some mistakes somewhere else. And so our factored form would be 2x cubed times 5x plus 1 times 2x plus 5. And then we've got that factor. Don't forget that 2x cubed. My suggestion is just carry it down the page so that it doesn't end up left at the top somewhere and not in your answer, because if you're checking answers and you multiply this out, you need that 2x cubed because it was part of the original trinomial. All right, so on this next one, we do have a common factor of 2, so we'll factor out a 2 first. All of these were even numbers, right? So we've got 14y squared plus 3y minus 2. And then we're going to multiply the 14 times negative 2. So we have factors of negative 28 that have a sum of 3. And this one's usually a fairly easy one to find. So it's going to be negative 4 times 7, because negative 4 plus 7 equals 3. All right, so then we replace the middle term with negative 4y plus 7y minus 2. Notice how I'm using these brackets. The brackets are nice because then, right, like on this previous one, when you start the factoring, you're going to use parentheses. So brackets on the outside with the parentheses just is a nicer look. It makes more sense looking at it that way, I feel like. All right, so we group, factor out a 2y from my first two terms. And then on the second two terms, they don't have anything in common except for a 1. You want to go ahead and write the 1 so you make sure that you write a binomial for your second binomial here, right? So my common binomial is 7y minus 2. And then my other binomial is 2y plus 1. Once again, you can always multiply this out to double check and make sure that you got it factored correctly. And if you take a look at this one, we can see, yes, that's going to work out. And of course, when you multiply without the 2, it would be what's in the brackets. And so it does work. And we're done with that one. All right. Probably end the video after this question, and then I'll have one last video for factoring. Okay, so the first thing here you might notice is we do have a common factor of y. So we're going to take out a y and put a bracket. So that's 24y to the second minus 2y minus 1, right? And then we multiply 24 times negative 1. So factors of negative 24 that have a sum of negative 2. This one pops out at me pretty easily, right? Negative 6 and 4, because negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. Now, 24 has several factors, so you might have to go through the process to come up with these. Okay, so 24y squared minus 6y plus 4y minus 1. And I maybe have talked about this before. I like to put my negative first if I have one of each, and then I don't have to factor out a negative here. So it's nice to have a positive on that third term if possible. Now, if both terms are negative, of course, we have to have a negative there. All right, but it's okay if you do it the other way too. It'll still work out. So we group. We take out a common factor of 6y, and then that's going to leave me with 4y minus 1. Here's another one where we only have a common factor of 1, and that leaves me with 4y minus 1. And then factored form. Don't forget that last step. We have y times 4y minus 1, my common binomial, times 6y plus 1, my other binomial. Once again, you can always go through and double check by multiplying this out and be sure that you didn't make any mistakes with any of your numbers or with your signs. And that's it then for this video, and there will be a fourth video coming up. All right, bye.